Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for tuning into the CloudNativeFM podcast. It's been a while but since I've hosted some podcasts. We hosted some podcast shows during the AWS reInvent coverage on the CloudNativeFM, together with a collaboration with my friend Richard Simon on Cloud Therapist YouTube channel. So we're starting a new series, and that's called AI FinOps. And today's episode is one I have been looking forward for a while because we're talking about a problem that almost every engineering team has right now, and but very few have some solvable solution on their backyard. So if your company is shipping AI feature, there is a very good chance you have no idea what's your actual spending on LLM APIs, not by model, not by team, not by agent, until the invoice lands at the end of the month. My guest today is Khursheed Hassan, founder and CEO of CloudIDR and the former head of product at AWS EC2. He spends years building cloud infrastructure from inside at Amazon, saw firsthand exactly how pricing model were engineered to extract maximum value for customers, and then he went on to build a company to fight back those challenges. Cloud RDR is what they call an AI FinOps platform. Their flagship product, LLM Ops, sits between your code and your LLM provider, routing every single request to the cheapest capable model in real time, giving you hard budget guardrails per agent and team, and showing you exactly where your AI spend is going, all with two lines of code and zero changes to your application. They have benchmarks saving up to 35, 37 to 89% on real production workload, and they just landed full AWS Bedrock support covering 15 providers, 62 models alongside OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini. Without any further delay, let's go straight to my guest of this time, Khursheed Hassan, CEO of CloudIDR. Thank you very much, Khursheed, for joining us.
Sim, it is delighted to be with you. I know it has been quite a while now, but this is fantastic what you're doing, and I'm super glad to share what we are up to recently.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Khursheed. Uh, oh, I lost the Khursheed. I don't know. Might he hit the wrong button today. But once again, while he's joining me back again, uh, Khursheed, I will ask you and now you're back again.
Mhm.
Awesome, good. So Khursheed, once again, give us a very quick glimpses and updates to what's happening in the cloud IDR today.
Yeah, so we introduced a newer product a few months ago, earlier this year, which we are calling Large Language Model Ops, and it is a end-to-end platform. And we saw a need in the industry, and as we were talking to customers and people in the field, we realized that there is this very emerging pain around the world of tokens. And suddenly, as companies move from a purely POC or a development or MVP phases to having real customers, that is actually a hockey stick shift there in the consumption. And and we realized, talking to many folks out there, to say like, oh, suddenly I have this new line item in my budget which I never actually thought about. We knew cloud was costly. We deployed cloud optimization tools, but what to do about this tokens and how we are consuming those and how to kind of really make sense out of it. So we learned from the field and introduced this new platform, which adds on to our prior platforms like Flex Compute and disaster recovery compute services. It's a brand new offering, but I think this is really relevant to companies who are AI native or becoming AI in many different ways. You're mute.
Absolutely, and I think you're very perfectly right about, because I think what's happening in the AI, I think the AI, the wave and the experimentation is rather tough. What we actually used to know in the IT spectrum. Whenever we build out some product, we do have some open source tool. We experiment around it. We build out some we build out some infrastructure, consumption tooling. We build about new ideas, but the AI is a larger cheap is a very intensive work. You need a lot of GPUs, so the error of like we have a very slow bandwidth to put some errors there, because your bill is going to be the skyrocketing. Some companies might afford those little glimpses in the bills, but some companies might be bankrupted with something has been is stayed in their infrastructure, and they're using it, and the usage becomes skyrocketed. So luckily we have some companies, thanks to you, who actually been looking very closely on the AI FinOps angle in particular. And also, and I think we back in the day when you joined me, we talk about flex compute and schedule compute, and I think we talk about disaster recovery, and today we're talking about some of the new offering you have in the LLM Ops field, and we want to know more what actually new things you bring to the customer base as well. So over to you, if you want to share some insight on the topic, and we can actually see if I follow along with the audience of the question. I will definitely throw you in, and I also add some of the topic into the debate as well. So over to you, Khursheed. If you have some pitches for your product, you definitely want to add in the screen as well.
Yeah. So, am I showing something here or no?
No,
Okay.
you can't. You're not already.
Got it. Is it now visible?
Yes, you. The screen is absolutely visible now.
All right. So we're going to kind of do a very interesting talk today, and I want it to be more educational, informative, as well as sort of really hands-on practical, so you can really take some meaningful value out of it. Uh, there are a lot of topics here, but we're going to jump right away to the topic number 2, which is the token economy. And token economy, just to get into context and perspective, is in the last 3 years since the late launch of ChatGPT, just a little over 3.5 years ago, we have seen the leading companies who provide frontier models based tokens to have grown dramatically. And this curve is just rising up and up. In fact, I recently saw somewhere that the ARR of Anthropic is not even 30 billion, it may be 50 billion this year. So never ever in the history of any technology shift we have seen such a fast exponential hyperbolic growth, which is happening right now. And it's being driven primarily by the users, you and me, and the companies who are consuming these tokens as a way to do increased productivity and build new things out there. So before we get into the further on, I will just kind of put a little bit of context. The token means roughly 4 or 5 characters of text. The way I think about it is one word is one token, simply said. And typically when you make a request through an API or through a chat window on a chat GPT or Claude, you are sending sentences which gets converted into tokens. And typically a input token where you send something and what you receive, which we call input and output, those are we're going to see in the next slides how are priced differently. And roughly it can be 500 to 2,000, right? If you are really efficient about it and depending how you're doing the work. So there is this whole sort of a rate card exists for the tokens. And I'm giving you a glimpse here. The important key insights are, depending on the type of the model, even by the same provider, you can actually see a huge variation in the cost of consumption. For example, in this particular table, I'm showing Gemini 2.5 flashlight, where you have a 40 cents for output token for a million output tokens. And if you go to GPT 5.5 Pro, it's $180. Or if it were GPT 5.5, it's $30, right? And even GPT-4o Mini would be like 50 or 60 cents, right? Very close to Gemini 2.5 flashlight or similar. So you see this huge gulf, and the question that really becomes is that, are you spending $1 million to do the work, or are you spending a $450 million to do the work? Just taking an extreme examples here. That's the difference, which can mean a lot on your bottom line. And this is where a lot of intelligence have to come in the industry to see, look, how we are optimizing our consumption of the tokens, because that is directly related to the balance sheet. So just like cloud FinOps, AI FinOps is a discipline which tries to do kind of similar things, but in a very different manner. You have visibility, so you should be able to see who is consuming how much, where those consumption is happening. Then you have control and governance, that the right people have access to it, and there are no budget overruns. And finally, optimizing which model to use, which provider to use, how to map that into your real workloads. One thing which I really want to kind of maybe clarify is that you cannot force fit AI FinOps into Cloud FinOps, because at a fundamental level, as shown in the bottom of the slide, there's a different data model. The data model is actually inventory and usage hours in the cloud world. In the AI FinOps world, the data model is based around tokens, it's their assignments, and how do you kind of optimize those. And the real important thing which differentiates why these data models are different and is the reaction time, which is shown in the slide, third from the bottom. In cloud world, you can be looking at things a month down the road, a few weeks down the road, and kind of optimize, right size the instance, right? But in this case, your consumption, you would be doing real time. So every prompt should be optimized. Overages should be looked at on a continuous basis, because you can have a free running agent which can go into an infinite loop and just consume tens of thousands of dollars immediately, right? So you fundamentally have to build a different set of technology. You cannot take that one technology and apply it to Cloud FinOps. You have to create a new set of technology, and I believe there will be a set of companies coming up, as well as the existing Cloud FinOps guys trying to come into this arena. Any questions, Simon? You're on the mute.
Yes, I think you track some of the good visibility here, because the one topic I really been interested, because you said cloud FinOps, the AI FinOps has been a different spectrum, because right now I think the FinOps wave in general is being kind of a tricky, because they try to set a balance between the cloud spending and the AI spending in general, because cloud has its own intricacies. You run the cluster somewhere in the infrastructure machine that can be EC2 based, that can have some CPU RAM associated with it. But when you move into the ladder where the AI FinOps angle works, you need a similar cloud layer in general, and then you build out what you actually need on top of it, the GPUs capabilities as well. And the feature set is a very important slide. I think you make into the point. I think the primary factors, I think I think the one idea I really like about it, the slide, is you said intelligence per dollar. So that's a very neat way to think about the primary metric, because in the cloud FinOps, we talk about the CPU usage, we talk about the RAM usage, we talk about the load balancer usage, we talk about the EC2 usage. But the intelligence per dollar is, I think that I want to see more debates on that topic as well, because I think this actually creates a new analogy, the new paradigm shift to actually tackling the AI services as well. And I think the one question I think people might have at this moment of time, let's say, what is the bare minimum they can actually build to run the AI model? And I think, can you tell us as you move along? I would like to know a little bit about more. What is the primary role of the cloud IDR when somebody is starting an AI journey AI FinOps journey? Where should the cloud IDR fits in the picture? I think you have some question. Might have, is there some answer in the slide, but I want to have some visibility there. If some of the listening to us, they might need to know this.
Yeah, so great question, Simon. And I think where people can find immediate value by using Cloud ID or companies like us is to say, look, to track their costs, to track who is consuming what, right? Because if you cannot measure something, you cannot optimize that. And you're sort of completely flying blind. And that is why I said the first foundational pillar is visibility. Now, if you see in this particular image that I've said, this is a sort of a snapshot taken out from our dashboard, is you need to know which provider you are using. Maybe you may be like, just like you can be just like multi-cloud, you can be multi-provider, right? And for each provider, which department in your company, which project, or which agent, if you're building agents, is actually consuming the model, how many input output tokens it's consuming, and what the cost looks like. So if you have that level of granularity, you can sort of look at the cohesive monthly spend or a weekly spend, or say, look, it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, or why did I use this expensive model versus a cheaper model, right? Now, all of that ties to optimizing your eventual monetary outcome coming out of it, right? So you don't want to overspend on intelligence. You want to just spend the right amount to get the work done. So that is straight away the value, and the way we get that value is by building a gateway, or you can also call it a proxy, which sits in the middle of the provider and yourself as a company. Now, because we can track everything, we can provide a lot of visibility, plus the two things that I'm going to talk about right now. Now, one of the things that I have constantly heard is that uh, you may have sort of agents or calls which are just kind of consuming tokens for no reason. It may have gone into a bad loop. So a AI FinOps platform should definitely provide ability to rate limit or to put threshold caps so that you do not cross that expense. And this is another snapshot where you can go to a very fine level and say, look, within this one particular agent operating in this sort of a workflow, I need to make sure it's not spending more than $600 or $500 a month. And then if it does, you get alerts ahead of time, and then you can go and say, okay, this is an important agent, this is all authentic, let's kind of increase the budget cap here because something happened which I would never thought about happen, and this is enabling my customers to do more work, so it's justifiable to increase the budget, versus not being able to have that sense of why who cost something. The third thing, final part of this, and I think this is a super important part, and this I believe is going to play a bigger and bigger role in the future, is that where does the intelligence reside in model routing? And the reason for intelligence in model routing is the 450x differential between the cheapest model and the most expensive model. Now, either you can say, you know what, my developer should have a very deep understanding of all the models that are coming out all the time and be able to cherry pick that model, which means the developer are constantly evaluating and thinking, or you have a third party like us who are keeping track of the models, they're optimizing the algorithms under the covers and doing automatic optimization for your prompts and queries, right? So for example, what I show here is that there's an agent called monitoring. The total request it sent out was 36,000. We decided to optimize 21,000 because we thought the other 15,000 were actually going to the right model, which they had baselined. But the other 2/3 were actually worthy of routing to a cheaper model. But then there's a stack of models, so which cheaper model you want to pick, right? Which should not compromise the quality. So in model routing, we rerouted to a different model, or maybe a bunch of different models, less expensive one, and you can see the savings could be 90%. And we have benchmarked actually different workloads to say, look, these savings can be as well as 98% at times if you have a wrong baseline model or a very expensive baseline model. Now, there are other aspects of optimization as well, which is called semantic caching, where you can cache before sending to the provider, or you can do it in yourself as well, so that you incur zero bills. Nothing goes to the provider. You have a response, and then one question of a semantic example is, give me the history of United States of America, right? So if you are an educational institution and you have 500 students asking the same question, you don't need to go to 500 times to the provider or the model. You have just cached the answer already when the first student asked, and you're responding back. And so you have dramatically then decreased the cost of paying, right? And the third thing is prompt caching. We don't need to go into that. The prompt caching is usually done by providers, and this is one of the strategies to lower the cost or to kind of be more efficient here. Where CloudIDR or the AI FinOps companies are going to perform are at level 1 and 2. Okay. So a couple of interesting benchmarks, and what we see here is we took a data summarization workloads which were suitable for data summarization, which happens, doctor notes and whatnot, and then triaging when a patient comes into the clinic or the ER room. Should they be admitted? Should they not be admitted? What should the action look like, right? Whether it's a ER room or a urgent care clinic. And we baseline this against Gemini 3.1 Pro, which I think is $30 per million output tokens, not $180, if I'm not mistaken. And we saw that if the baseline is somebody is thinking, hey, I should get the best model to kind of do my work, it actually is not necessary. And we use multiple techniques here to judge the responses, and the responses by cheaper models, inexpensive models, were actually as good as the top best-in-class model, while saving substantially, as shown in the orange bars here. Again, red is the baseline to, let's say, $100,000 spend, across summarization and across triaging. So this is a very important result out there. Then we took a financial services, 4 different workloads. The last one, conversational financial Q&A, is actually really important, because then there are actually SEC filing reports and very deep documents, and you're asking questions around that document, right? So there's a lot of search, etc., other things that have to be done to kind of respond to it. And the input prompt size are huge in all of those, especially the last one. And you see that using one of the intra-provider techniques, which is basically optimizing within the same provider, from expensive to cheaper models. If it's OpenAI, then it's OpenAI, because sometimes people may just want to stick with their one provider, right? They don't want to do multi-provider thing because they may have discounts with them, or they may have comfort with them, or whatever. It's like you're only on AWS, you don't want to go to Google Cloud or whatever. So if you want to do that, that's the orange bar. And if you see, if we did this analysis for different workloads, you can have different savings. But even with the most complicated workload, which is the last one, conversational, which is shown as conf, you can still basically saving nearly half by routing, right? And that's a very meaningful result here. Now, in some of the cases, what we do is we also kind of route to open source models in our algorithms. And in some cases, actually, they were more efficient, which shown by green line, compared to even running within the same intra-provider. In other cases, like in the last one, they were not, right? But in general, there is substantial savings by doing intelligent routing. So now this is a time for a very interesting hands-on live demonstration of how this thing works. If you are watching, I will recommend you to go to this link, which is up there. I'm not sure we can copy here or not on the chat, and if the chat is available, but we're going to kind of perform with that. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to sign in. So let me actually log out from here and just sign in. If you are an enterprise customer, we support SSO as well. So happy to do that, work with that. But if you sign in, you see a dashboard, right? And you see at a very high level the number of token requests that you have sent out, the number of tokens that if you have consumed over the last 1 year, the cost over the last 1 year, all-time tokens, all-time costs, so on and so forth, right? And obviously there are a bunch of filters where you can say, I want to see the last 90 days and what does that looks like. And you can kind of move things around and say, if you are a multi provider house, you can actually see all of those different costs. And we show fractions, we show how the consumption of the token over time, the pricing that you spend, which teams and departments have consumed this, which model. So you can kind of do different slicing and dicing from the visibility point of view. But what I want to show today is the playground. And this is really fantastic. So what we'll do is that we'll pick Gemini and we'll maybe pick one of the models here. Let's kind of pick this one. I'll put my key here and I will, and this is really helpful for people who are just getting started out. They want to have a sort of a sandbox to play and evaluate. We're going to show evaluation in a second. You can write any prompt. You can kind of increase this. You can increase this for the relevant and run this. Okay, so API key was not valid. Let me go and find the other API key. All right, so it was the wrong API key. All right, so just like in your ChatGPT or Claude windows or Gemini windows, we saw essentially, if you look at the bottom, which model was used, how much time it took, about 2 minutes, 16 token in, train 26 token out, and this was the cost, negligible, right? And that is the cost of an intelligence, which is very negligible. You should always translate that to the amount of time to write an email like this and how much you are saving. So if you are like a $50 an hour or $20 an hour person, you can just see how much time you need and how much time this guy's get the work done. Now, where it becomes super interesting is we did a run here. And if you go back here very quickly, you will see that I just ran something a minute ago. It was Google. There is no tagging, so we do not know which actually agent or team consumed it, right? But if you really want to be diligent about it, let's ask another question. And what we can do is we can put a tag here. So maybe I'll say this is today we are doing a webinar. And the department is our friend's SIME native podcast. And the agent is eval, right? So I can actually put some tagging and I can run the prompt again. So I'm sorry, I should have that Gemini. Okay, the response came back. And if I go back to my dashboard, I would be able to see it was this department, this webinar, and eval. This is where I spend my resources. This is where I spend my money, right? And which model was used. Now, if we take it further and we go to eval, let's do the same eval here. We can actually, let's say, take the more expensive model. Let's take Pro Preview and make Gemini as a judge. Maybe take one model less expensive. This one. Or maybe Flash Preview. Let's take Flash Preview. And we're going to make, how do you judge the different models output are equivalent? You need to do it manually, which many people do, or you're going to have an automation inbuilt with hybrid or only judge. And in this case, we took the Gemini Pro as the judge, which is the expensive model, right? So now we're going to compare a little less expensive model, and the comparison is in the manual mode. So we're going to go back to Google Gemini. We have put the key already, so it's not asking the key. And maybe we'll look at flashlight, right? So we have gone to second best in class model to a cheapest model, right? And we'll ask a question, decline a meeting. We're going to increase this thing, so maybe they can give some thinking tokens. For some of the models needs thinking tokens. We'll give that as well. And we'll run both models in parallel. So now this is really helpful if you're learning, trying to understand how the models operate, just get an intuitive sense out of it, right? So we do run eval. Oh. So is invalid. Maybe it needs a little more. I do not know. This is the value here, right? So this is an intricacies of running models. So you can just find a lot right now by playing here. Sometimes, all right. So you've got two different outputs, Gemini 3 flash preview, and the comparison which we take as 2 flashlight. Well, 84 output tokens, 138 output tokens. Well, more output tokens. But which one is cheaper? Well, comparison model is equivalent. This is the judge telling us. And it is roughly 80% cheaper, even though it had more tokens output. It was richer in output, and it's cheaper. And if you want to play with it, and how did we sort of quantified? And by the way, this is the judge, the best in class model is actually doing that, being the judge, right? And then you can also judge yourself by reading through it. And we provide you all these 4 dimensions to say, look, baseline versus comparison and the ranking. So very practically, you can use our playground and just try to see how models behave and build really deep intuitive sense, which can translate back to your workloads and how you build your systems. I'm going to stop here, pause here.
Yes, absolutely. I think this make perfect sense now, because I think what's happening in the AI wave in particular, a lot of the developers and a lot of the teams within the organization needs more features, and those features will be embedded inside some different LLM. So we start building those features, and then we end up anticipating that the cost is becoming so much, and then the next line of defense is to reduce the talk is the cost, and then there's a hurry angle, and then there's a frustrated angle inside the organization. Oh, we need to trim down these and these, but they don't have visibility up front. But the cloud idr giving you the visibility upfront that we talk. I think as we speak about the security angle, security should be incorporated from day zero. And I think the AI FinOps is also being the premises. You need to tackle around these strategies from day zero, rather than you doing later. You have something in a visibility. And I think on because I live in the cloud native worlds a lot of the time, I think what you giving us as a visibility angle, we can add policy enforcement on top of it. We can understand this. Some developers using token cost is becoming a skyrocketing, and now we can embed policy enforcement on top of it. And then we later tell my team, like one of CEO or actually, why we actually enforce those policies. Once again, we go inside the console and later let them know that's the reason we enforce these policies, because we move from the very expensive model to the cheaper model in itself. And that's the visibility angle I really like about it in itself as well. So Khursheed, one of the is there anything currently your team is working on that you haven't been demo out, but in the next few feature new month or year we can actually see this coming inside the platform?
Yeah, so we have launched very recently a very interesting feature called Agent Traces. And what Agent Traces does, it allows you to actually go and look uh, at a very nice level. If there were multi-step way, you would have done that as well. Let me pick a better one.
Khursheed, are you sharing your screen? Because I
Uh,
can't see yours.
yeah, maybe it just disappeared. So we just recently launched last week Agent Traces, which actually provides a dirt cheap way. Instead of paying expensive price to Datadogs and others in the world, you can actually instrument your request, and we can go through every single cause that happened in that request to get a work done. It can be writing emails, it can be doing different intelligence. So how much latency and which model was selected, and did we route it? Yes, we routed. How much we saved? We saved 81% for even granular calls that are happening, and you can see the whole package that is built. Now, coming to your question, we are actually have a very rich roadmap where we are adding things like forecasting for CFOs. We do today a little bit of forecasting, but this is a CFO dashboard. We'll be adding more for the finance teams. Plus, we have working on some advanced routing algorithms so that this, remember, this all happens in real time. It needs to happen within like milliseconds, right? We don't want to introduce delays here. So those are some of the things that are actually in our plan right now, and we should be launching those shortly.
Absolutely, would definitely. I would looking forward to catching those up again. I think the one of the pricey, one of the most selling point of the platform in general is because when you work with the developers, that they need to experiment. If you stop, if you ask, please don't experiment, they are very difficult to innovate, and the developers need to understand which model is cost effective, which one is cheaper, which one I need to use. They can go directly inside the cloud idr console, experiment with the model, and see where the cheapest cost available. And within the cloud idr front, they're actually giving you the very good visibility that you can actually integrate it without adding any lines of code in your pipeline as well. Because right now the challenge is that when some of the teams knew how to trim the cost down, but they don't have time to do it, and that's the timing is important here. So if somebody tells you the way they can actually, you can offload your work and they can you do the work, they actually been very intelligent, they didn't know the work better than you can actually trust those up, and then you start building some collaborations point on top of it as well. So I really like the UI in particular because it's give me the very very detailed single point of view for the FinOps angle, for the developers angle, from the CTO and the CEO angle in as well. So Khursheed, there's a question here from my side. Is there a breakdown between the console you're showing us where we can trim down and see as a workspaces for the developers, for the FinOps? If somebody if so, let's say if I am a part of the CEO, the FinOps team, I want to know which of my developers are using which of the cheaper model or which of the expensive model. Can I see those kind of capabilities inside the dashboard?
So we have team analytics, which where we show actually the consumption by different team members. So if you onboard developers, they will get their own sort of API key, and then we can track it. But you have actually provided a very good insight. Maybe that's our roadmap item to kind of further go and say, look, these are different models they used, and this is how this spread looks like between even within the developers. Right now, if the developer gets their own dashboard where they can actually see all of that, and they can then print it out, but we are not pulling in a breakdown way right now for every single developer. It's a company-wide view or it's the personal view, right? If you also are a CTO doing something.
I think from my personal speaking, I would love to see some features like kind of a baking in some policies, like, oh, is that the developers comes around and we have a policies we can't use, let's say for some odd reason we can't use some AI, open AI codex or some other models there that's been available, because we understand those are not cheaper for our organization. That the new developers get onboarded, they don't know this policies is being widely adopted and practiced inside the organization, and they start using those model, and then there's a price tag is actually associated with it, and then we are in a hurry mode. I want to see those kind of policy enforcement to be added inside the platform. If somebody do this, there's a error or the warning saying you can't do this with the policy in the organization, you can't use this model, experimenting with it, it has so much cost associated with it. So those policies might be a very fruitful thing for some of the listener or companies listening to us right now.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So definitely, it is now part of our roadmap.
Oh, thank you very much. Absolutely. So, Khursheed, before we wrap up the discussion, is there any conclusion you want to show from your, because you worked with the AWS as a part of the AWS team back in the day, you've seen the cost angle very extensively. You work with the AWS within their customers, you know their pain points are. If I ask you, what is the most tipping or the most vital pain point that the company is actually been trying to solve these days, but they're having a very hard time figuring it out how?
I think it's a very loaded question. I think what I will sort of zoom out to a higher level, and I think the question is, if you're building your applications, your agents, are you using building with, let's say, within the Bedrock environment? And if you're doing that, do you have the right tooling available to do all the optimization angles. The advantage of working in a hyperscaler provider environment is that you already have databases there, you already have the storage there, so it's useful. But I think where things, and this is, I don't have a perfect answer here, but my sense is that there is going to be a shift in the cost equation. So people are really heads down into cloud cost optimization, but certainly this is going to come up and will become at par, if not greater. Because I've
Hmm.
seen customers who have left using GPUs and directly moved to using tokens because they don't want to deal with the infrastructure headache of running their own models.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And one other thing before we wrap up the discussion, we see there's an announcement in the AWS Bedrock. Are you supporting some kind of those supported inside the platform? What are those? Can you give us some glimpses on that?
Yeah, so very quickly, what we do is that we can actually show you here right now.
Can you share your screen, Khursheed, again?
Yes. So if you look at the starting at model pricing, so we support basically, I think you were referring earlier, is Bedrock. So what is happening in the industry is the companies, the businesses, either they go directly to the provider like OpenAI Cloud and they run it there directly, right, through calling them, or Bedrock and other cloud providers also host these models. So, for example, these are all the models which we are now right now supporting, which are hosted within the Bedrock. So you go through the Bedrock API calls, and you're paying AWS. You're not paying the Anthropic guys, right? So people who want to remain within the ecosystem of AWS, they still need to use the provider. They don't need to have a different path of payments, etc. So we are supporting Bedrock through our integration with them. It's a very native integration, and they will just call it, and it will work.
Oh, awesome. That's very good news because I think we've seen Bedrock is becoming a very popular suites in the AI companies and they're using it quite extensively as well. So having the support like this, I think give very good trusted angle to the companies who's looking forward to adopting the cloud IDR is in particular. Once again, thank you very much, Khursheed, for a very wonderful insight in the I think it's a very tough topic and we can go on for this hour because I think in terms of the timelining of trimming the cost down is everybody have a very limited bandwidth and they're looking for ways how faster they can enable those kind of things rather than they're going in a slower rate as well. So I think cloud IDR has become a very useful guide to them as well. So I think when I invited you last time, we're talking about most on the cloud FinOps angle because that's where the developers need a scheduled compute capacity, and I think those really are the very good use cases as well. So I will link those as well because those offering helps very good developers and the DevOps team in particular. And now what you're showing you today is even more resonant considering where we are in the industry. So Khursheed, this has been an outstanding conversation. The clarity you have brought to why FinOps is a distinct discipline from Cloud FinOps and the way Cloud IDR is building the actual control plane for AI spend. I think this is exactly the kind of thinking the industry needs right now. For everyone listening, if your team is spending on LLM APIs and you have even a small amount of uncertainty about where the money is going, Cloud IDR has a free tier you can set up in literally 60 seconds with the 2 lines of code. Go to cloudidr.com, click the free sign up, no credit card, no commitment. And if you're running serious AI infrastructure and want to talk real numbers, book a saving assessment with Khursheed. The link is available on the YouTube channel as well. And also, if you want to play with LLM Ops, sign up. The one is Khursheed is actually jamming right today. You can go into the LLM Ops cloudidr.com/sign up and you can actually experiment with it as well. Also, I think CloudIDR has a saving calculator. I've seen this. I think this is very useful. if you want to see where the spending is going, go to the cloudidr.com/saving/calculator as well. So thank you very much, anyone. If you have any question, you can directly reach out to me or Khursheed. The link is available. You can also connect with the Khursheed on the LinkedIn account as well. I also mentioned the meeting link where you can actually book a meeting with Khursheed if you want to see more of his companies in inside detail, how the cloud IDR has been developing or operating on their solution. You can go check out as well. So once again, everybody, thank you very much for joining the podcast on the Cloud Native FM. And if looking forward to seeing where you want to save cost in the upcoming years, on the upcoming days. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye, everyone, from now.
Thank you.